Thank you for joining us on the news at 7 on NTA International. We're coming to you live from Abuja, and I am Ruth Aguele. Let's begin with the headlines. As Nigeria takes steps to stem coronavirus spread, 4 new cases of Lassa fever confirmed in Ondo State, southwest Nigeria. Independent National Electoral Commission takes steps at tackling drastic reduction in the participation of Nigerian voters during elections. Plus, Discrimination Against Persons with Disability Act, lawyers with disabilities on advocacy to the media over inactivity after assent by President Buhari. And we'll begin with a deadly virus, coronavirus. The new coronavirus found in China, called Wuhan pneumonia or virus, has become a thing of concern as it has reportedly spread to countries like Japan and North Korea. And it has fast spread into other parts of the world in view of the fact that Nigerians are highly mobile people, and as you're aware, diseases know no borders. The question that readily comes to mind is how prepared is Nigeria towards ensuring that the coronavirus does not spread to its shores? What precautionary measures exist in that regard? Basi Ipang was out to get answers to some of these questions.
Around the world have always struggled to stop the spread of viral diseases, from the deadly swine flu, which struck the globe in 2009, to ongoing attempts to stem the tide of Ebola in West Africa, and the coronavirus called Wuhan pneumonia that is currently wreaking havoc in China. The virus was first identified in the central Chinese city of Wuhan. It is said to have spread to at least 4 other countries. More worrisome is the fact that China's National Health Commission has confirmed that the Wuhan coronavirus can be passed from human to human, putting even the medical staff and other caregivers at risk. What are the things Nigerians should know about this virus? Our quest to get more answers, we had to visit the Nigerian Center for Disease Control, where we met with the Director General. Coronavirus has same symptoms as cold-causing viruses and can be transmitted by touching an infected person's hand or face, or by touching things such as doorknobs that infected persons have touched. The Nigerian government is not leaving anything to chance at ensuring that the disease does not spread to the country. I have with me the Director, Port Health Services, to give us an update of what the federal government has on ground.
As you can see, we have the thermal scanners, so you can actually walk through without knowing you're being screened, or you're being screened on the camera. Furthermore, we carry out what we call visual observation to look out for passengers who show signs of communicable diseases. So when that happens, we step them aside, we ask them to step aside, we take further information, a travel history, and if it fits the case definition, then we escalate it and we activate the protocols, and they get taken to a designated health facility for further management.
Some people who spoke with NTA News said it was time for Nigerians to imbibe health-seeking behaviors, wash their hands, and imbibe good hygiene more than ever.
Just stay healthy.
Just stay healthy.
Stay healthy.
Keep your environment clean. Your house, your environment. Make sure. Don't wait for Abuja environmental people to come
take care of you.
You can take care of the environment. Make sure things are in order.
Basi Taikbang, NTA News.
Many thanks, Basi. Now, joining us in the studio for a deeper perspective on the coronavirus is Dr. Clement Lugala Peter. He's a public health expert and officer in charge for the World Health Organization Country Office in Nigeria. Thank you very much for joining us, Dr. Peter.
Thank you, and good evening, listeners.
Good evening. Now, we have heard cases, about 517 cases reported worldwide, and 17 people reported dead in China. US have also reported a case, but for Nigeria and for the World Health Organization. Now, what are the findings so far on this virus?
Well, first, thank you very much for having me in the studio. We know that the novel coronavirus is actually a new strain of the coronavirus that has never been reported in humans before. And the link between animals and the humans in terms of the transmission is very high. And therefore, it is a disease that is occurring at the time when some of us in this part of the world experiencing harmattan changes in the temperature. The disease manifests, first of all, like common cold, fever, and a cough, before it goes to a more severe situation that affects respiratory system and the person dies from the severe state. So this calls for a bit of information. People need to understand what it is and how they can prevent themselves. And I do think that the government of Nigeria, with the support of partners, including WHO, wants to ensure that people, Nigerians, are informed about the disease. The government ensures that the linkage between traveling to states, to countries which are affected is very important so that people don't have to panic and fear. The government is taking every measure possible to ensure Nigerians are protected.
Okay, and talking about precautionary measures, we have seen airport quarantine measures already being taken in Nigeria. Now, what other preventive measures should the government take, and also individuals?
I'll start from individuals.
Okay.
One thing in this kind of disease, which is more transmitted by respiratory, say, air droplets, we need to ensure personal hygiene. We need to wash our hands. When you sneeze, you must have what we call, know how to protect, ensure that you don't sneeze and spread to other people. You need to cover your nose, your mouth when you are coughing. And if you have symptoms that a fever, cough, and seems to be persisting, you need to seek care from medical advice possible. This starts with the people. And then the link between this virus, this disease, and animals, especially seafood, is very high. Okay. It means even food that we prepare, we should cook it very well and prepare it safely. In terms of the government ensures that people are well informed. What is very important is managing the information. The second thing the government has is to ensure that entry points, the ports, whether sea or air, people who come in, they are screened so that people enter the country. You ensure that they don't have the symptoms when they enter the country. Okay. Also, the other thing which is very important is to ensure that the capacity to even diagnose is necessary in the country. So all these efforts the government is trying to put in place for the people of Nigeria.
Now, you mentioned fish earlier, that's seafood, and snakes also. Research has also proven snakes. Now, there are people who eat that. Are they at risk also?
Well, we don't encourage really a lot of contacts with the animals in this situation. We need to avoid as much as possible. Researchers, they are linked to animals. Of course, we don't have concluded evidence at this time, but we ensure that we minimize contacts with animals as much as possible.
Okay, and according to the World Health Organization, it has been confirmed that the disease is transmissible from one person to another, but it's still unclear on how can this disease be contracted, that is from one infected person to the other. Can you make more emphasis on that? Right.
At this point, it's not clear. What happens is that when the virus gets from the contact between animal and human being, the virus got a bit of a mutation. It changes and it becomes now transmissible between human to human. This is not yet well established. Okay. And as you might know, the WHO is hosting the meeting of international experts to advise WHO on the next steps. So we need to get more information as WHO before we advise the public.
All right, thank you so much, Dr. Clement Lugala Peter. Thank you very much for joining us on the news.
Thank you for hosting me.
All right, and we have been talking about the trend coronavirus, and Dr. Peter has been giving us insight on preventive measures we should take. But in Nigeria, 4 new cases of Lassa fever have been confirmed in Ondo State, making a total of 88 cases diagnosed since the outbreak this year. Olubukola Aduwa reports that the patients are currently receiving treatment at the infection unit of the Federal Medical Center, Owo. 3 out of the new cases diagnosed are from Owo local government area and from Akure South local government area of the state. The state epidemiologist, Dr. Stephen Fagbemi, who disclosed this, said the patients admitted earlier are in stable condition while the new ones are receiving prompt treatment. Okay, we don't have a track up for that, but he also encouraged schools, homes and corporate bodies to join hands with governments in ensuring that hand washing method is adhered to. In other news, the Nigerian Governors Forum is adopting far-reaching economic and health approach in promoting friendly investment climates and reassessing health facilities for effective planning and efficient service delivery. Abubakar Usman Akwanga reports that these and other issues dominated the monthly meeting of the Governors Forum in Abuja.
In what could be described as a robust economic and health strategies under a collective initiative of entrenching stable and flourishing investment roadmap and health sector, the Nigerian Governors Forum is working on specific models of sustaining steady progress.
Governors agreed to carry out immediate actions on the implementation of the Seattle Declaration, including the constitution of a multi-sectoral primary health care under one roof.
As demonstration of its commitment, the forum receives update on subnational engagement model for youth employment in agriculture and agreed to meet with relevant parties to develop modalities for implementation. Another national issue that came to the front burner was the outbreak of Lassa fever and coronavirus, which is already threatening the health sector, with firm resolve to adopt precautionary measures to avert the spread of the virus. The forum, which received presentation from Citizens Zone Ownership Program and the Federal Mortgage Bank of Nigeria, pledged to engage the mortgage institution in addressing the housing deficit facing the country. Minister of Communications and Digital Economy also took turn to explain regulations around rights of way, multiple taxation, skills and innovation, as well as indigenous content promotion.
The ministry and the regulators will sit down, look at how we can intervene and resolve so that the sector can move forward.
The leaders assured the people of Holistic Platform to chart a new course in the nation's communication industry and increase participation of citizens in driving the digital economy platforms as vehicle for diversifying the economy. In Abuja, Abubakar Usman Akwanga, NTA News.
And away from the economy and health, the fight against drug abuse in Nigeria has consistently... before we take the drug abuse story, let's look at Amotekun. Attorney General of the Federation and Minister of Justice, Abubakar Malami, reiterates federal government's position that any security arrangement not supported by extant laws is illegal. This is in a statement by the Special Assistant of Media and Public Relations, Office of the Attorney General and Minister of Justice, Dr. Umar Jibrilu Gwandu. The minister was speaking on a Radio Nigeria program, Nationwide Politics, emphasizing that the federal government has made its position known, rooted in the law and the constitution. He explained that regional security architectural arrangement by states is not tolerated by the constitution of the federation and hence cannot be rooted in the constitution of the Federal Republic of Nigeria or in any of the extant laws. Malami said planning, execution, consummation of whatever security arrangement must be naturally grounded in law, rooted in the Constitution and tolerated by the law on the issue of state governments making efforts towards legislation that would back the operation of Amotekun. The Attorney General of the Federation said that the federal government stance revolves around the legality and constitutionality elements that should be factored into the planning, conceptualization, consummation and execution of the operation. The Attorney General of the Federation said the federal government does oppose a working arrangements with the institution established by the Constitution for the provision of security and in this case with particular reference to the police. In the circumstances of the Amotekun, he said it is the idea of the unilateral control that it is the problem without recourse to the institutional and constitutional arrangements that is put in place by the Constitution. Responding to claim that some state governors from some regions have been making efforts to establish regional security apparatus in their regions, the minister said the law is universal and will naturally prevail in ensuring that due processes are indeed complied with. Now let's take you back to the story I started calling earlier. The fight against drug abuse in Nigeria has consistently raised attention, especially among the youths who often fall victims. Now, to further strengthen sensitization and public awareness on the abuse of drugs, the National Drug Law Enforcement Agency, NTA I, has unveiled its anti-drug ambassador for an effective response. Daily it kills them, but they persist. An addiction only the victims can explain, but a future that society will need to fix. In its efforts to redefine drug control and nab culprits, the agency tasked with the responsibility are not relenting in ending the menace of drug abuse in the country. One of its strategies is getting the youths involved, and Ugochi Onoha, who is 26 years old and a student of Lagos State University, today is unveiled as the anti-drug ambassador of the National Drug Law Enforcement Agency.
Thank you. Your Excellency, you're welcome to the club.
Thank you, sir.
Geared with these tools, Ugochi seemed ready for her mission.
I plan to use my music to reach out to a lot of people out there, because I feel like music can relate to a lot of people even more than words, especially young people out there that are so sink in drug, and they need young people like me to give them advice, to talk to them.
Then she has the courage to be a very good representative of the NDLA in their campaign to sanitize the society about drug use.
I like to see a family that is not being affected. I like to see a street where this does not go on, such that as she talks and passes her message in Nigeria, more people will be aware of where we're headed.
As the campaign continues, the NDLEA believes that saying no to drug abuse is a collective responsibility. All right, let's go on a break. We'll be back shortly, so stay tuned.
NTA I has gone mobile. Catch your favorite programs anywhere in the world by going to Play Store on Android and App Store on iOS. Search for Vision TV UK, download and install. Then you're good to go.
Thanks for staying tuned. Tackling the menace of drastic reduction in the participation of Nigerian voters during elections is one of the major concerns of the Independent National Electoral Commission in subsequent elections. National Commissioner and Chairman Board of Electoral Institute, Solomon Shoyabi, disclosed this at a focus group discussion on voter apathy towards continuous voter registration and elections in Nigeria. Timothy Yusuf will tell us more.
Findings from the Independent National Electoral Commission show an increasingly sharp drop between 1999 and 2019 in voter turnout. The average voter turnout during the 1999 general elections was 52.3%, which dropped to 34.7% during the 2019 general elections. The implication is that only a few number of people are involved in the election of the nation's leaders. This challenging trend is disturbing and needs to be addressed immediately. This focus group discussion on voter registration and elections, organized by the INEC Electoral Institute, is critically looking at the factors behind low participation in the electoral process by the Nigerian electorate.
We have a very high enthusiasm when it comes to voter registration, but when it comes to actual utility of those cards, the participation in the electoral process, we discover that we have a decline. What is responsible for this?
What we want is, what particular reference can we make to all these critical issues that we have said has been the reasons why there is voter apathy?
The group discussion later dissolved into a parallel session. Stakeholders in the election management body promised speedy presentation of identified solutions to appropriate quarters. In Abuja, Timothy Yusuf, NTA News.
In other news, the Discrimination Against Persons with Disability Act, signed into law by President Muhammadu Buhari last year, is yet to be implemented. The act, which stipulates rights, duties and obligations of corporate organizations and individuals in integrating persons with disabilities into the society without discrimination, also spelled out sanctions for breach. Worried by the non-implementation of the act, members of Association of Lawyers with Disabilities in Nigeria paid a courtesy visit to the Director General of the NTA, Yakubu Ibn Muhammad, to solicit NTA support and partnership in giving effect to the provisions of the Act by creating awareness. Let's hear from Vera Chumuba.
President of Lawyers Living with Disabilities, Mr. Daniel Owe, is appealing to the federal government to establish a national commission for people living with disability to fast-track the implementation of the Act. Mr. Owe said the visit is in commemoration of the 4th anniversary of the enactment of the Act and to solicit the support of the NTA in creating awareness on the need for corporate entities and individuals to give effect to the provisions of the Act to make life more meaningful to beneficiaries. He thanked the NTA for its partnership, noting that the implementation of the Act would stem discrimination and give them a sense of belonging.
We also need the Nigerian populace to know that persons with disability should not be discriminated. And employers in the public sector should also, in line with the provision of the Act, employ persons with disabilities whom before now have actually suffered discrimination at the workplace. So we want the NTA to indeed create awareness on this Act.
The Acting Director of News, Halima Musa, who received the lawyers on behalf of the Director General of the NTA, Yakubu Ibn Muhammad, said apart from promoting the welfare of all Nigerians, NTA has already taken steps to comply with the Act in terms of employment and provision of facilities to enhance performance of duties. She said the NTA will continue to join hands with other stakeholders to promote the enforcement of the rights and other obligations under the Act. Under the Act, corporate offenders risk a fine of 1 million naira, while individuals are liable to pay 100,000 naira. There is also a penalty of 6 years jail term for the offense as an option. In Abuja, Viera Chumuba, NTA News.
Many thanks, Vera. And next is business news with Onengie Fineface.
January 2020 FGN bond auction by Debt Management Office, DMO, is oversubscribed by more than 300%. The DMO offered 155 billion naira of 3 instruments, 5-year, 10-year and 30-year tenors to investors at the auction. Subscriptions received through competitive bids for the 3 instruments at the auction stood at 624.498 billion naira, while the sum of 1.83 billion naira was received through non-competitive bid. Investor appetite for the 30-year bond continued to grow, with subscription of 341.77 billion naira compared to the amount offered of 55 billion naira, while subscription for the 10-year bond was 201.98 billion naira when compared with the amount offered of 50 billion naira. Overall, the sum of 411.822 billion naira was allotted to investors at the auction through competitive and non-competitive bids. In another development, aside providing shared ICT infrastructure, applications and services to all federal government ministries, departments and agencies, Galaxy Backbone is set to collaborate with relevant key players in a bid to generate more revenue for government. Managing Director of the agency, Professor Muhammad Abubakar, said this after a meeting with the Secretary to the Government of the Federation, Boss Mustafa, on the utilization of ICT for official duties.
To make available the infrastructure that we have in Galaxy to also private sector. Okay, so that now private sector will also key in. Okay, and of course, once you start to have this kind of thing, then what it means is that you have now another source of revenue that is going to be coming in for the federal government.
That's business news. Thanks for your time. I'm Onengie Fineface.
Thank you, Onenge. And talking sports, fans tipped Super Eagles to progress in World Cup qualifiers. Details and more with Kene Ima Abodike.